This is CBN Newswatch.
Thanks for joining us for CBN Newswatch. I'm Mark Martin. One of the biggest pro-life cases in the last 20 years is still underway in California. Liberty Counsel reported that more witness and evidence presentations happened this week. In the federal civil trial, Planned Parenthood is suing the Center for Medical Progress founder David Daleidan and others for producing undercover videos allegedly showing workers discussing the gathering and sale of aborted baby body parts. The videos sparked national outrage and congressional investigations. LifeSite News reports witnesses for the abortion giant claimed last week that the videos led to fears of increased violence against abortionists. The American Center for Law and Justice is part of the legal team for the pro-life defendants. And joining us now from the ACLJ is Senior Counsel Matthew Clark. Matthew, give us the latest update on where things stand in the case.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Right now, we are in the very last week of testimony in this trial. It looks to likely be going to concluding arguments next week. But some very important things have happened in this trial, some things that Planned Parenthood specifically tried very hard legally to keep out of this trial. They've actually opened the door to allow to come in, and so the jury has actually got to see some of these videos that the rest of the public has already seen.
Shocking testimony has surfaced in this trial. Are you surprised, Matthew, by what has been shared in court so far?
Well, just from the fact that both the judge and Planned Parenthood did not want some of this testimony to come in, but in fact, Planned Parenthood's own attorney opened the door to some of this testimony, in fact, asking one of those involved with the CMP videos, the Center for Medical Progress videos, why they did it. And by asking why they went undercover to investigate Planned Parenthood, that individual was able to testify before the jury under oath that they did it because they believed that Planned Parenthood was actually engaged in criminal behavior, was actually selling aborted babies' body parts in violation of federal law. And so that information then came before the jury. In another instance, one of Planned Parenthood's own abortionists was testifying and had to answer questions, and in fact had to testify under oath that she did in fact state on one of the videos that she wanted a Lamborghini as compensation for those aborted babies' body parts. And that was definitely a shocking part of this trial. Well, the rest of us have seen this as these videos have come out, but the jury had not heard that information yet. It was a powerful moment.
Can you tell us, Matthew, or tell our audience how the jury has reacted during the trial?
Well, I can't speak to the jury as we have ongoing and representing clients in this particular case, but what I can tell you is that the testimony itself is very shocking. When you have a Planned Parenthood abortionist testifying that they wanted a Lamborghini for aborted babies' body parts, when you have another one, the video was actually played for the jury of an abortionist saying that they were crushing babies in different ways in order to better harvest their organs. That video was played for the jury the first time that one of these videos was played for the jury, a very powerful moment. And then that abortionist was asked on the stand what they thought of what they said, and they said it didn't really matter. It didn't bother them. And so when things like that are coming out in this trial, it's very important to pay attention to. And I think what you're seeing is the tide kind of turning, that the specific things that Planned Parenthood wanted to keep out of the trial are actually coming into the trial. The jury's able to see it. It's making a powerful impact.
Okay, Matthew Clark, Senior Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for covering this story.
In other news, California's Attorney General disclosed an ongoing probe into Facebook's privacy practices. The state is suing the company over its repeated refusal to turn over documents and answer questions.
We have, since the spring of 2018, been looking into allegations that Facebook violated California law by, among other things, deceiving users and misrepresenting its privacy practices. Those are serious allegations when you consider the personal information that we all supply to Facebook every single day. Facebook knows some of the most intimate details of our lives, from our new job, or a new marriage, or to the death of a loved one or birth of a child.
The lawsuit followed the Cambridge Analytica scandal, where the firm allegedly gathered details on as many as 87 million Facebook users without their permission. President Donald Trump is back on the campaign trail, traveling to Louisiana Wednesday night, supporting Republican businessman Eddie Rizpone's efforts to unseat the Democrat incumbent Governor John Bel Edwards. The president also took on other subjects, including Joe Biden, trade with China, and in front of an enthusiastic crowd, he talked about next year's congressional races.
The Democrats' shameful conduct has created an angry majority, and that's what we are. We're a majority, and we're angry, that will vote the do-nothing Democrats out of office in 2020, especially we're going to take back the House. And we're going to focus on, like those 36 Democrats in Trump areas that I won by a lot. I didn't run in 2018. You know, they keep forgetting.
The president also introduced two of the state's famous reality TV stars, Phil and Willie Robertson of Duck Dynasty.
I got it down to this. If you're pro-God and pro-America and pro-gun and pro-duck hunting, that's all I want.
The president will return to Louisiana next Thursday to again campaign for the Republican gubernatorial candidate 2 days before the election. We're going to have more on this story and others this evening on Faith Nation. You can watch it right here on the CBN News Channel. Switching gears now, Christian comedian John Crist is canceling tour dates and admitting to sexual harassment and addiction. A Charisma News report details the personal experiences of a few women, and Crist emailed them this response saying, "While I am not guilty of everything I've been accused of, I confess to being guilty of this. I have treated relationships with women far too casually, in some cases even recklessly. My behavior has been destructive and sinful. I've sinned against God, against women, and the people who I love the most." He went on to say, "I am sorry for the hurt and pain I have caused these women and will continue to seek their forgiveness." Republican and Democratic lawmakers are asking the Trump administration to slap sanctions on Turkey if its forces or proxies conduct military operations outside Syria's so-called safe zone. In a letter to U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, the senators said there is evidence Turkey has violated the ceasefire deal and is operating outside the designated northeast Syria safe zone corridor. Our senior international correspondent George Thomas recently returned from northeast Syria. Welcome, George.
Thank you.
Now, from the beginning, Turkey has talked about creating this 18-mile safe zone from the Syrian-Turkish border. Yeah. Does Turkey, though, have ambitions beyond this area?
Look, as you said, the impetus from the Ankara perspective was that this area of Syria and Turkey, the border, along the border, there was this group called the YPG, an arm of another organization called the PKK. And the Turks argued that the PKK was a terrorist organization and they had to go across the border into Syria and clear this area. So they asked the international community for an 18-mile safe zone, a so-called safe zone, a corridor that would be absent of any SDF, Syrian Democratic or YPG fighters. For the most part, most of the YPG fighters, the SDF, they are out of the area. The Turks say there are a few positions that they still control. They want them completely out of there. But the reality, as you mentioned, Mark, is that Syria has greater ambitions. They want to go beyond the 18-mile corridor. And in fact, there have been reports since the operations began several weeks ago that the Turks, along with their proxies, various jihadist groups, have been operating, have carried out military strikes and operations well beyond this 18-mile corridor, and it's of serious concern. And that's why you saw lawmakers across the aisle, both Democrat and Republican, sending a letter to Mike Pompeo saying, if this is the case, if there is evidence, Turkey has to be sanctioned in response.
George, Turkey and Russia are conducting joint patrols in northeast Syria. Yeah. Talk to us how the locals are reacting to their presence.
Well, in fact, we have video. If the director can roll it, we have video of, you see it right there. They're pelting Turkish as well as Russian forces with tomatoes and stones. They clearly do not like, in this particular area of northeast Syria, they have received some blowback from the local residents because, again, this was an area largely controlled by the Syrian Democratic Forces, by the YPG for many, many years. And now to see the Syrians, to see the Turks and the Russians in their area, in their territory, has not been a welcome sign for those living in the area.
President Trump has talked about withdrawing all U.S. forces from this part of Syria, but they are still in the country, right?
They absolutely are. Pretty much after the intense pressure that the president faced in the weeks after he announced that the United States was going to pull some 1,000 troops, now he is making a provision for them to go back into Syria and principally to safeguard the various oil fields in the eastern part of the country. You see the tanks rolling down the streets of the northeastern part of Syria. But the reality, Mark, is that this is more than just about safeguarding Syria's oil reserves. I mean, to be honest, there's not a lot of oil coming out of the ground from this part of the country. But I think some of this is in response to the intense pressure the Trump administration has experienced, has faced since the decision to pull the troops out. And in all likelihood, the question is, what happens if Syrian forces fire upon American forces? What happens if Russian forces fire upon U.S. forces? How are they going to respond? So in my opinion, this is more than just about safeguarding the oil fields in the eastern part. This is basically saying to those that have been pressuring the administration, look, we still have troops there. They will continue to be there. And what their specific role is going to be in this region at this particular time is still yet to be determined.
Now, you were over in northeast Syria. What is life like there for Syrian Kurds and the Christian community?
It has been very, very tough, Mark. I mean, pretty much since the invasion started several weeks ago, 300,000 plus Syrian Kurds have been on the run. You see them jumping on trucks, walking with very little of their possessions, pretty much the clothes on their back. I was in Hasaka several weeks ago, and it's the epicenter where so many of these refugees have been pouring in. The city of Hasaka has about 40 schools. All of them are jam-packed with these Syrian refugees, some coming across the border injured. And so they face a very, very difficult future ahead. As this continues to drag on and you don't create a safe environment, the Christians are suffering as a result. In one town that I went to, Kamishli, it has been pretty much emptied of the Christians because they feel that they are being persecuted and they are being driven out of their homeland. And it is a story that we here at CBN News will continue to stay on top of.
All right. Thank you, George. Our senior international correspondent, George Thomas.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Coming up, did Democrats really have a big win in the election in Virginia Tuesday, or was it all just media and political hype? We're going to hear from Vice President Mike Pence's chief of staff and get his take on what this week's vote meant. But before we go to break, here's a look at what's trending on CBNNews.com.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN Newswatch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN Newswatch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Yes, right on time.
From Superbook.
Pepper's Pizza Palace is donating pizza for everyone today. Wait. I have big plans today.
Trust in God even when times are tough. He has a plan for your life.
Hey, we're gonna be late for the grand opening.
My parents want me to help with this outreach thing, feeding the community. What am I supposed to do here? Superbook!
Join the Superbook Club and get Superbook The Birth of Moses, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25.
Pharaoh ordered all newborn Hebrew boys thrown into the Nile River, and I have a 3-month-old brother.
The Birth of Moses. Yours for a gift of only $25.
What will you do the next time the soldiers come? I do not know, but I trust God has a plan for all of us.
Superbook Club members, free streaming for seasons 1, 2, and 3 is now available.
Welcome back. Was it a blue wave or media hype? Either way, Democrats are emboldened after their big election win Tuesday in Virginia and their declared gubernatorial victory in Kentucky. Now they're setting their sights on recapturing the U.S. Senate and the White House next year. But on this week's episode of The Global Lane, Vice President Pence's chief of staff, Mark Short, suggests Democrats did not actually do as well this week as some people might think.
Gary, I think that you look at Mississippi and Kentucky, and Republicans won 5 of the 6 top statewide elections. You go further down, and I think it was 13 of 14 when you include all the state auditors and treasurers. So the reality is that I think Democrats will focus on the governor's race, and if they use that to pursue additional endless investigations and justification of what they're doing in Washington, D.C. is working, you know, I think that's going to hurt them a lot in 2020 because the American people are frustrated. They're tired of endless investigations. They want Congress to do the things they promised they would do. And in reality, in 2018, when Democrats took control of the House, they made a lot of promises to the American people. They promised they work with this administration on drug pricing. They promised they work with us on immigration. They promised that they would find better solutions on a large number of issues, including trade. And yet today, there's absolutely zero that Americans have to show for Democrat leadership. All they've pursued is one investigation after another and actually not delivered anything for their constituents.
And now we're moving to open hearings in the impeachment inquiry. Do you expect Democrats will drag this out in an effort to further damage the president, or will they risk taking an impeachment vote, which may actually help improve the president's favorability ratings?
You know, Gary, my assumption is that they're going to pursue, they've been pursuing impeachment for quite some time, ever since, in fact, this administration was inaugurated. And I think that right now you have an impeachment trial that's in search of justification for what they're doing. And so I think this will probably drag out through December. My assumption is they'll probably have a vote in the House in December. And if it moves to the Senate, that would happen in January. But again, I think that what we hear from constituents time and again is to say enough of the endless investigations. What is this really about? When you step back for a second and say that all of the money that was appropriated by Congress was provided to Ukraine within the time it was supposed to be provided. Allegations of a cover-up when the president provided the entire transcript for all Americans to read for themselves. The president of Ukraine, Mr. Zelensky, himself said he felt no pressure whatsoever. Ultimately, there was no investigation that we know of launched by Ukraine into the Biden family. So any sort of notion of a quid pro quo when the money was released, I think, falls flat. So the reality is, again, this is an impeachment that's continually in pursuit of a justification. And I don't think that's what the American people wanted. I don't think that's what our founders intended when they created a process for impeachment. There's never been such a partisan impeachment as the one that we're enduring right now.
And any day now, Mark, the Inspector General's FISA report will be made public. And that, of course, is about possible abuses by the Department of Justice and the FBI in obtaining those warrants to monitor the 2016 Trump campaign. So how damaging do you expect that report to be?
You know, Gary, that's something that we don't have insight into, but I do think that the American people have a right to know whether or not people inside the Department of Justice were pursuing political purposes and whether or not they politicized investigations in pursuit of FISA warrants. And I think that that's very important for all of us to know. I don't think that when the FISA law was created, Americans wanted to see abuses into people's civil liberties and civil rights, particularly if there were people in the Department of Justice who had a political agenda. And I think that's important for us to find out.
And Attorney General Barr has federal prosecutor John Durham investigating the investigators. Do you expect indictments and criminal prosecutions? What do you think you'll find?
Gary, I don't think we know right now. I think we have enormous trust in Attorney General Bill Barr and the Inspector General that he has chosen in this case. And And we await it, but it's something that's being done in a very non-politicized fashion that doesn't include the White House, and so we look forward to seeing what the results are.
And Mark, the administration has just announced a new initiative on adoption and foster care. Tell us what that will mean for people of faith and faith-based groups.
Well, Gary, this was a very important announcement on Friday, and that what the Trump administration was doing was actually overturning a midnight regulation. You call it that, a midnight regulation, is it means it's after the election and the Obama administration, on their way out the door, passes or puts in law several new regulations. And one was a regulation that discriminated against Christian adoption agencies, that denied them access to federal funding, denied them access to federal programs for adoption. In this country, we have hundreds of thousands of children in foster care who are still awaiting a home. We think it's important that everybody have the opportunity to have access to those federal programs so we can place more of those children in adopted homes. We know that our Savior, Jesus Christ, saved all of us. He adopted all of us as a pathway into heaven and His kingdom. And the reality is that what the Obama administration had done is they denied Christian groups who do not provide adoption for same-sex couples and honor traditional families. They deny them the access to participate in these programs. What the Trump administration regulation did is it overturned that Obama-era regulation and makes it accessible to all, including Christian agencies, to participate in the same program.
You can hear more from Mark Short and Gary Lane's commentary about a New York drag queen's mock abortion performance tonight on the Global Lane at 9:30 Eastern, only on the CBN News Channel. Still ahead, how Christians from South Africa are showing their support for Israel in a unique way.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path.
Nigerian Christians
in Iran are routinely arrested.
Happily, Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Watch Christian World News, Saturday at 5 p.m. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Thanks for staying with us. Imagine Christians from South Africa, home of the BDS movement, blessing Israel with a biblical musical. That's happened recently with the performance of a Broadway-style musical based on the book of Daniel. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has that story.
They call Daniel the musical a gift of friendship from South Africa with love.
The whole musical was created for the purpose of bringing it to Jerusalem. Part of the message that we've brought from South Africa is that the vast majority of South Africans are people that relate with Judeo-Christian values, more than 80%. And that's not reflected in our government's policy.
Creator and producer Joe Neiman says South Africa's stance against Israel isn't good for his country and hopes this gift can begin to change that.
When God promised Abraham that he would bless those that bless Israel, that is the word of God. So for us it's not political, it's about believing the word of the God of Israel and taking him on it.
The musical, performed at the Jerusalem Theater, aims to blend the biblical story of Daniel and his 3 friends from Jerusalem with an African style.
In the compositions, there are flavors of Middle Eastern harmony, but the arrangements are African. And that became the bridge between South Africa and Israel and the musical concept.
It opens just before the Babylonians breach the walls of Jerusalem and capture Daniel and his friends. We meet King Nebuchadnezzar and his wife. The captive's introduction to Babylon. And Daniel interpreting Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Neiman wrote the musical in less than 6 months, miraculously found a theater on short notice, and began rehearsals.
I almost feel like I'm dreaming, you know. It's been such a compressed time and with so many incredible miracles that needed to happen, and it's happened.
And what did the audience think?
It was full of life. Certainly the spirit of the Bible and the actors came through so wonderfully. And what's amazing to me is the miracle that it was put together so fast. How you rehearse something and bring it together so quickly is beyond belief.
I live in Israel with my family made Aliyah. And just like God connects us all, and it was just an amazing performance on the show that really got to me.
Just amazing to see the African spirit transmitted into a biblical play like this was truly amazing, and it was very emotional and very heartwarming to see the support that there is for Israel.
The musical was clearly a gift well received, and producers hope it will continue to bless Israel, South Africa, and nations around the world. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
It has the power to influence weight loss, boost your immune system, and improve brain function.
We've seen an explosion of data on the role of the gut microbiome in health.
The free Build a Better Gut booklet reveals the latest information about the gut microbiome. You'll discover how your gut affects the rest of your health.
The gut microbiome has been linked to depression and cancer and heart disease.
Learn how to build a stronger, healthier gut.
The microbiome, if it's in good composition, are really protecting us all the time from more invasive things.
Get the Build a Better Gut booklet, free from the Christian Broadcasting Network. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut.
You need to make sure that your microbes are working with you, not against you.
And if you order online, you'll get immediate access to the Build a Better Gut series, a digital copy of the booklet, and related bonus material. Build a Better Gut today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut for your free copy.
A heartwarming moment between 2 rival Texas high school football players has gone viral. Senior Gage Smith asked his opposing player Ty Jordan if he could pray for him after hearing Jordan's mother was battling cancer. Jordan's aunt posted pictures of the teens praying together on Twitter and wrote, #GageSmith. Thanks for praying and speaking life into my nephew Ty Jordan. You are blessed and amazing. Smith's coach says Smith is a true leader on and off the field. Boy, he sure is. That's going to do it for this edition of CBN Newswatch. Have a great day.